I always thought we had the perfect marriage. Or at least, that's what I told myself for 15 years. We had the house, the kids, the shared memories, the inside jokes. Things that people dream of when they think of a lifelong partnership. I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these stories, but life has a way of slamming you against a wall when you least expect it. The worst part? It wasn't just the betrayal. It was how casual it was, how effortless. Like our 15 years together were nothing more than an old, worn out book she had already finished reading. I wasn't even suspicious at first. I was one of those husbands who genuinely believed he had nothing to worry about. Sure, we had our ups and downs, but what couple didn't? Sure, she had been more distant lately, but we were both getting older, life was stressful, and I figured it was just one of those phases. I was wrong. It all started with a lie so small, I almost let it slide. "I'm staying late at work," she said one evening, her voice just a little too nonchalant. I didn't question it. Why would I? She had always been hardworking, always had worked dinners and meetings. But that night, when she came home, she smelled different. Not perfume, not anything obvious, just different. Like the kind of scent that clings to you after you've been somewhere intimate. I told myself I was imagining things. Until it happened again. And again. It was the following week when I decided to check our shared location on my phone. A stupid thing, really. I only did it because she wasn't answering my calls. I expected to see her at work. Instead, she was parked in an unfamiliar residential neighborhood, miles away from the office. My stomach dropped. I didn't act right away. I didn't want to be that husband, the one who jumps to conclusions. I convinced myself there was a reasonable explanation. But the next night, she was there again. And the night after that, that's when I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I followed her. That Friday, I left work early and parked down the street from our house, waiting. When she pulled out of the driveway, I stayed a few cars behind, my hands gripping the steering while so tightly my knuckles turned white. She didn't go to work. She didn't even hesitate. She drove straight to that same house, parked in the driveway like she belonged there, and walked inside without a second glance. She had a key. A fucking key. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, staring at that front door, my whole body numb. I should have stormed in. I should have done something then. But I didn't. I just watched. And when she finally came out, 2 hours later, she was laughing, smiling, looking radiant. And then, this is the part that shattered me. She kissed him. Not just any kiss. A long, slow, deep kiss. The kind of kiss that says, "I belong to you." And then she got into his fucking car, and drove home. To me. To our house. Like nothing had happened. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I don't even remember the drive home. It was like I was in a daze, my mind replaying the image over and over. Her lips on his. Her hand on his chest. The way she looked at him. The way she used to look at me. By the time I got home, I had convinced myself I needed proof. Cold, hard evidence. If I confronted her now, she'd just lie, gaslight me, twist the story until I was the bad guy. No, I needed more. So I started digging. The next day, when she went to the gym, I went through her purse. I know, privacy, trust, all that bullshit. But I didn't care. Not anymore. I found what I was looking for in less than a minute. A hotel key card, and a receipt from a bar I didn't recognize. 2 drinks. A late night timestamp. My stomach churned. But that wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part was when I checked our credit card statements. Hotel stays. Restaurants. Charges I didn't recognize. She wasn't even being careful. She had been doing this for months, right under my nose, spending our money on him. I felt sick. That night, I couldn't even look at her. She came home, kissed my cheek, asked me how my day was like nothing was wrong. Like she wasn't fucking someone else behind my back. I almost lost it right there, but I held it in. Not yet. I needed more. So I did something I never thought I would do. I hired a private investigator. It felt surreal, like something out of a bad movie. Sitting in that dimly lit office, explaining my situation to a complete stranger, handing over cash for proof that my wife was screwing another man. But I had to do it. And let me tell you, nothing could have prepared me for what I found out. The first thing he told me, a few days later, made my blood run cold. She's not just cheating, he said. She's been living a double life. I thought I was ready for anything. I wasn't. I stared at the investigator, my heart pounding. What do you mean, a double life? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man slid a folder across the desk toward me, his expression unreadable. See for yourself, he said. With shaking hands, I opened it. The first thing I saw was a photograph of my wife sitting in a fancy restaurant, laughing with him. Not just any man, the same one from the house, the same one whose car she had driven home in. But that wasn't the shocking part. No, what made my stomach drop was the fact that she was wearing a different ring. Not her wedding ring, a simple gold band on her left hand, a ring I had never seen before. I flipped through the pages, each one worse than the last. Receipts for dinners, trips, hotels, all under a different name. Her name, except she wasn't using my last name. She was using his. She had been pretending to be his wife. She's been doing this for at least a year, the investigator continued. 2 separate lives. One with you, one with him. I don't know how she managed to juggle both, but I can tell you this. She's careful. She's smart. And she has no idea you're onto her. I felt like I was going to be sick. A year. A full goddamn year. How had I been so blind? I clenched my fists, trying to control the rage bubbling inside me. Do you know who he is? I asked. The investigator nodded. His name is Mark Bennett. Divorced. No kids. Runs a business downtown. He thinks your wife is his fiancée. I let out a bitter laugh. Fiancé. I repeated, the word tasting like poison in my mouth. She told him she was engaged? The man nodded again. It gets worse. He hesitated. I didn't want to tell you this over the phone, but they're planning a wedding. I froze. The world tilted beneath me. A wedding, I echoed. She's engaged to him. The investigator nodded. I found a venue deposit under her alias. She's been planning it for months. The date is set for next summer. My vision blurred. My own wife. The woman I had spent 15 years building a life with. The mother of my children. And she was planning a future with someone else. She never filed for divorce. I muttered, more to myself than anyone. She never even tried to leave me. That's because she wasn't planning to, the investigator said. Not yet. From what I can tell, she was keeping you both on the hook. Maybe she was waiting to see who offered her the better life. Maybe she was planning to string you both along forever. I don't know, but I didn't know she's been lying to both of you. I closed the folder, my hands trembling. I need to talk to him, I said. The investigator hesitated. That's your call. But if I were you, I'd gather as much evidence as possible before you confront either of them. He was right. I needed to play this smart. If I lost control, if I acted on emotion, she'd just spin it against me. So I took a deep breath and asked the question that had been burning in my mind since I first opened that damn folder. Where does he live? 2 nights later, I stood outside Mark Bennett's apartment. I had rehearsed what I was going to say 1,000 times in my head, but now that I was here, my nerves were on fire. I knocked. A few seconds later, the door opened, and I came face to face with him. My wife's other husband. He was about my age, maybe a little older. Well-dressed. He looked confused. Can I help you? He asked. I took a deep breath. Yeah, we need to talk. It's about your fiancée. His eyes narrowed. I don't know who you are, but... She's my wife. Silence. He blinked, his face twisting in confusion. What did you just say? She's my wife. I repeated, holding up my phone. I had saved photos, text messages, bank statements, proof. We've been married for 15 years. We have 2 kids, and she's been lying to both of us. For a second, I thought he was going to slam the door in my face. But then, without a word, he stepped aside. Come in. I walked inside, my heart pounding so hard I could feel in my throat. His apartment was clean, modern, nothing like the home I share with my wife. There were pictures of her on the walls. Her smile, her eyes, so familiar, yet so foreign now. He gestured for me to sit. I didn't. How do I know you're not lying? He asked. I handed him my phone. He scrolled through the pictures, his face going pale. When he got to the one of our wedding day, he let out a shaky breath. Son of a bitch, he whispered. Then he looked at me, his eyes filled with something I recognized all too well. Pain. How long? At least a year, I said. Maybe more. He ran a hand through his hair. Jesus Christ. We sat in silence for a moment. Then, suddenly, he let out a cold, bitter laugh. You know what's funny? He said. I was going to propose next week. For real. Get legally married. I clenched my jaw. She's been playing us both. Yeah, he muttered. Looks like it. We sat there, two men who had nothing in common except for the one woman who had torn our lives apart. What do you want to do? I finally asked. He exhaled sharply. I want to ruin her. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. Mark and I sat in silence for what felt like forever. Two complete strangers, connected only by the woman who had lied to both of us. The woman who had built a future with each of us, all while juggling her double life like it was nothing. He looked down at his hands, shaking his head, his jaw tight with anger. I don't even know who the hell she is anymore, he muttered. I scoffed. Join the club. I could feel my blood boiling just thinking about it. Every memory I had with her, every anniversary, every lazy Sunday morning, every time I told her I loved her, it was all tainted now. Lies stacked on top of more lies. We need a plan, Mark said, finally breaking the silence. His voice was steady, but there was a dangerous edge to it. We can't just let her get away with this. He was right. She deserved to face the consequences. But I didn't want some messy confrontation where she got to cry and play the victim. No, I wanted her to feel the weight of what she had done. I wanted her to lose. She thinks she's untouchable, I said. She's been doing this for over a year, probably thinking we'd never find out. She's too comfortable. Mark nodded. We need to hit her where it hurts. We sat there, going over every possible way we could expose her. But no matter how we spun it, one thing became clear. She had to be publicly humiliated. No quiet, private breakup where she could twist the story and walk away clean. She had to be unmasked in front of everyone who thought they knew her. And then it hit me. Her engagement party. I said, the words tasting like poison in my mouth. She's planning a wedding, right? That means there's an engagement party coming up. Mark's eyes darkened with realization. 2 weeks from now, he confirmed. I was invited, obviously. You think she'll invite you? I let out a dry laugh. Not a chance in hell. Then we'll make sure you're there, he said, his expression hardening. She's not walking away from this clean. For the next few days, we worked in secret. I gathered photos, text messages, bank statements, everything that proved she had been living a double life. Mark pulled some strings to make sure I could get into the engagement party. It was going to be held at some upscale venue, filled with her friends, family, co-workers, all the people who believed she was this perfect, devoted fiancée. They were about to see the truth. The night of the party, I stood outside the venue, my hands clenched into fists. Mark was already inside, mingling with guests, keeping her distracted. My heart was racing, but I forced myself to stay calm. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about justice. She had played with our lives. Now it was time for her to answer for it. I waited until the party was in full swing before walking through the doors. Nobody stopped me. Why would they? I was just another guest, dressed for the occasion, blending in. The room was packed with people drinking, laughing, completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit. And then I saw her, my wife. Dressed in an elegant gown, a fake smile plastered across her face, standing beside Mark like she actually belonged there. My stomach twisted, but I didn't let myself falter. I walked to the center of the room, took a deep breath, and then I raised my voice. Excuse me, everyone. The room went silent. All eyes turned to me. She froze. I just want to say congratulations to the happy couple. I continued, my voice steady despite the rage burning inside me. It must be wonderful getting engaged, starting a new chapter. But before we celebrate, I think there's something you all should know. Her face turned pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I pulled out my phone and turned the screen toward the crowd. This woman, this wonderful fiancée, is already married. To me, gasps echoed through the room. Someone let out a sharp, no way. Others whispered in shock. I stepped forward, eyes locked on hers. For 15 years, we built a life together. We have kids, a home, and for the past year, she's been playing both of us. I pointed at Mark. She told him she was engaged. She told me she was my wife. But the truth is she was just using us both. Mark took a step forward, his voice cutting through the silence. She planned a wedding with me while still sharing a bed with her husband. Murmurs turned into full-blown chaos. People were pulling out their phones, recording, whispering, some outright glaring at her. Her parents looked horrified. Her friends looked betrayed. And her? She just stood there, trembling, eyes darting around like a trapped animal. "No, this isn't," she started, but I cut her off. "Save it," I snapped. "You don't get to talk your way out of this. Not this time." And then, to make sure she felt it, I turned to the crowd. I have proof. Screenshots, bank statements, hotel receipts. Anyone who wants to see how deep the lies go, come find me. She let out a strangled gasp, realization hitting her like a train. This wasn't something she could smooth over. This wasn't a private confrontation she could rewrite. This was public, and she was ruined. The rest of the night was a blur. Some people yelled at her. Some just walked away, disgusted. Her parents left without a word. Mark and I stood side by side as she crumbled, exposed, her world crashing down around her. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. She stood there frozen, her hands shaking, her face drained of all color. The entire room was staring at her, watching as the perfect illusion she had crafted over the past year shattered into pieces. "This isn't true," she finally croaked out, her voice weak, unconvincing. "This is some kind of sick joke." I scoffed. "A joke," I repeated, pulling out another set of receipts. "These hotel stays, these weekend trips, you paid for them with our joint account. Did you think I wouldn't notice money disappearing?" I turned toward Mark. "Or did you think he wouldn't notice all the unexplained expenses?" Mark crossed his arms, his face unreadable. "Funny thing is, I trusted you. When you told me you were busy with work, I believed you. When you said you were visiting your parents, I didn't question it. But you weren't doing any of those things, were you?" "No, you were going home to him." He motioned toward me, and I could hear a few gasps from the guests who were still piecing everything together. She choked on her words, eyes darting around the room, desperately looking for someone to take her side. But there was no one left to save her. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We could talk about this later." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that held no amusement. "Later?" I repeated. "You want to talk later? After you spent a year playing us both for fools?" "No, sweetheart. We're doing this now." Mark pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. A second later, audio filled the room. The sound of her voice, laughing, whispering sweet nothings to Mark. "I can't wait until we're finally married," she said in the recording. "I just have to take care of a few things first." The room erupted again, murmurs turning into full-blown shouting. "Jesus Christ," someone muttered. "She was planning to marry him while still married to you," another voice added. Her father, who had been silent up until this point, finally stepped forward. His face was a mask of disappointment. "Is this true?" he asked her, his voice quiet but firm. "Were you really planning to do this?" She turned to him, eyes wide with desperation. "Dad, please, you have to believe me. Believe you?" He shook his head. "I don't even know who you are right now." That was the final blow. She crumpled, shoulders shaking, hands covering her face. "You've humiliated me," she whispered, barely audible over the chaos in the room. "No," I said coldly. "You humiliated yourself." Mark exhaled, shaking his head. "This was never going to end well for you. You can't build a life on lies and expect it to hold up forever." For a moment, she just stood there, staring at us, at the guests, at the wreckage of everything she had built. And then, without another word, she turned and ran. Ran past the shocked faces, past the disgusted whispers, past the life she had destroyed with her own greed and selfishness. I let her go. There was nothing left to say. Mark let out a deep breath and turned to me. "You good?" I considered the question for a moment. I had just torn apart my entire marriage in front of a room full of people. I had just exposed the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, only to realize she was a stranger to me. And yet, "Yeah," I said, I think I am. The aftermath was messy, as expected. She tried to call me. I ignored every attempt. She showed up at the house once, but I didn't let her in. The divorce papers were sent the next day. Mark and I had a final drink together before going our separate ways, bonded by an experience neither of us had ever expected to share. And her? Well, let's just say she got what she deserved. Word spread fast. She lost friends. She lost respect. And most importantly, she lost control. Because no matter how much she tried to spin the story, everyone knew the truth. She was a liar, a fraud, a woman who thought she could have everything without consequences. And in the end, she walked away with nothing. As for me, I walked away with my dignity intact. And that was more than enough. The days after the party were eerily quiet. I had expected some grand gesture from her, a dramatic apology, desperate attempts to twist the story, maybe even threats, but there was nothing, just silence. And for the first time in a long time, my life felt peaceful. I spent my time packing her things, stuffing years of memories into boxes like they meant nothing. Because in the end, they really didn't. Not anymore. I had been living in a fantasy, loving a woman who had never truly existed. The realization was both freeing and devastating. Mark and I still talk from time to time, mostly just to check in. He had moved on faster than I expected, probably because, for him, this betrayal didn't erase 15 years of his life. For me, though, it was different. Every time I looked at old photos, I didn't just see a liar. I saw the woman I had built a home with, the woman I had once believed I would grow old with. And that was the hardest part. Not the betrayal itself, but the illusion of what I thought we had. Then, about a week later, she finally broke her. Silence. A single text. Can we talk? I stared at my phone for a long time. My first instinct was to ignore her. But a part of me, some sick, masochistic part, wanted to hear what she had to say. So, against my better judgment, I responded. Talk about what? A few minutes passed before my phone buzzed again. Just meet me. Please. I knew it was a bad idea. I knew I owed her nothing. But there was still a part of me that wanted to see her face one last time, if only to remind myself why I had made the right decision in walking away. I agreed to meet her at a quiet cafe, away from prying eyes. When I arrived, she was already sitting at a corner table, looking different, smaller, like the weight of everything had finally caught up to her. Good. She deserved it. I sat down across from her, not bothering with a greeting. Say what you need to say. She hesitated, biting her lip like she always did when she was nervous. But I wasn't falling for that anymore. I know you hate me, she started, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't hate you, I said. And it was the truth. I just don't care anymore. She flinched at that. Good. She deserved that too. I never meant to hurt you, she continued, and I almost laughed at how pathetic it sounded. I got caught up in something I didn't know how to get out of. I shook my head. You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew every time you lied to my face. Every time you came home to me after being with him. Her eyes welled up with tears, but I felt nothing. I had spent too long drowning in emotions she didn't deserve. I wasn't about to start now. I don't expect you to forgive me, she whispered. Good, I said, leaning back. Because I won't. She blinked rapidly, clearly not expecting that level of finality. But I was done giving her the benefit of the doubt. She swallowed. I don't want to be the villain in your story. This time I did laugh. A bitter, humorless sound. You don't get to decide that. You made your choices. You wrote your own story. And now you have to live with it. She looked down at her hands, silent. And for the first time, I saw it. The realization that she had truly lost. Not just me. Not just Mark. But everything. Goodbye, I said. Standing up.